So basically, there are hundreds of different trusts out there, but basically the trusts fall into three main categories: a revocable trust, an asset protection trust, as well as an IRA inheritance trust. Okay, but before I talk about trusts, there's one other rule that I want to explain to you, and this is called debtor-creditor law, or debtor-creditor rules, okay? So let's say John passes away, and this dollar represents his entire estate. Well, there's a couple of things that we can do with Agnes. We can just give Agnes the dollar, okay? We can just give it to her outright. Well, that's fine, but what debtor-creditor rules say is if Agnes has full, complete access to the dollar, so do her creditors, potentially. They have access to it as well. Okay? So Agnes says, I'm not sure about that. So we say, okay, Agnes, here's what we'll do. We'll take the dollar and we'll put it in the trust. Why are we putting it in the trust? Well, don't worry, Agnes, because we're going to make you trustee or manager of the trust. So as trustee of the trust, Agnes can go in any time, take the dollar out, okay? But what did we just say? If Agnes can take the dollar out, who else can? Her creditors, right? Well, what I just described there is number one on the screen, the revocable living trust. And we call that the open box. Now, I'm not saying it's all bad, because as I mentioned a minute ago, any trust avoids probate, but it is an open box in terms of creditors can potentially get into the revocable trust, the open box. Agnes says, no, I don't want that. I don't want creditors getting in there. We say, okay, Agnes, well, here's what we'll do. Number two, the asset protection trust. So we'll close the lid, we'll turn the key, and we'll give Agnes a co-trustee. Okay, so we're going to make Agnes's co-trustee, Justin, their oldest son. So give you a couple of examples here now of how that works with the asset protection trust, which we call the closed box. So again, we're assuming John has passed away now, so Agnes and Justin are now co-trustees of the trust. So in terms of asset protection, Agnes calls up Justin one day, says, hey, Justin, that old Buick that I've been driving, it finally conked out, it gave in, please let's open up the trust and buy a new car. What does Justin say? Justin says, of course, Mum, it's your trust, it's your money. So Agnes goes to the car dealership, gets herself a nice brand new sports car. Off she goes, she drives off in the new car, she's happy, we close up the trust again. Okay, so now many years go by, now not such a happy conversation. Agnes calls Justin from the nursing home, says, hey Justin, I'm here. I've already paid the November rent to the nursing home, but it seems like all they care about is money. I've got to pay December, January. Please, Justin, let's open up the trust and pay the nursing home. What does Justin say? Justin says, no, Mum, remember, this is why you and Dad set up this trust in the first place, to protect the money. So Justin says, you were smart to plan ahead. It's been more than 5 years now since the trust was set up. So what we can do if we need to is we can apply to Medicaid to pay for the nursing home. But this money, Mum, this money inside here is for you, is for if you have other expenses, if you want a private room in the nursing home, or if you want a private nurse to come in, things that Medicaid wouldn't pay for, you can do that. But we can apply for Medicaid to pay the nursing home. And of course, Justin knows that John and Agnes, they wanted the bulk of this money to go for them, down to the kids and the grandkids, so the trust is set up to do that. So let me just give you a quick example of how that works now. So what we're going to assume now is John and Agnes, they've both passed away now, okay? But before they passed away, they did number 2, the asset protection trust on the screen there. They did the closed box, okay? So they've got all the money, the house, they've got all the assets now inside the closed box. They've both passed away. Well, as I mentioned earlier, they have 3 children, okay? Justin, Katie, and Sam. Now, you don't have to do it this way, but this is how John and Agnes chose to do it. They decided for each of their kids, this was all in one document set up at the time, but they have 3 little sub-trusts. They have 3 asset protection trusts, sub-trusts under the main trust, 1 for each of their children. Okay, so Justin, his co-trustee is Katie. Katie, Justin is her co-trustee. And Justin is co-trustee for Sam as well. So how does the asset protection work now on down for the kids? Well, Justin, he's all excited. He's just come back from Florida. He calls Katie, his sister, his co-trustee. He says, hey, Katie, you know, I was just down in Florida. I saw this great condo down there. You know, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my money out of the trust and I'm going to buy myself this condo in Florida. Well, Katie says, hey, Justin, hold on a minute. You know, you can do that, but remember what Mum and Dad said. Why don't you do this instead with the condo? Okay, why don't you, Justin, why don't you have your trust buy the condo? Okay, so if you look at the legal title of the condo now, it's owned by the trust, not by Justin. What's the effect of that? Well, as far as Justin and the siblings are concerned, there's really no different. They can go down there, they can stay down there whenever they want to, invite family, friends there, just like they own it. But let's say down the road, of course we hope not, but let's say at some point in the future, Justin, he gets divorced, and his now ex-wife says, hey, I want half the condo. What does Justin say? Nope, sorry. I don't own the condo, the trust does. So that's how we get asset protection on down for children, even on down to grandchildren, etc. So that's number 2, the asset protection trust. And then I'll just, in the interest of time, just very briefly mention the IRA inheritance trust. So quick review, revocable trust, open box, good for avoiding probate, but creditors can still potentially get in there.